Reach high, aim high, and obtain.
So I'm going to teach you my special treats that I do for the holidays. And it consists of 2 ingredients, raw hazelnuts and milk chocolate pound plus from Trader Joe's. These are the 2 ingredients you need. Now, in regards to supplies that you need to make these turn out absolutely beautiful and perfect, you're going to need 1, something to chop those nuts really good with. And the 2, you're going to need something that will melt the chocolate for you. Now, I know some people prefer the microwave. I personally prefer a double boiler, the more traditional method. And then you're going to need some of these, these are actually like silicone molds. And basically what you do is once you've got this ground up and the chocolate melted, you mix them together and you can make something that's similar to the outside chocolate shell of those Ferrero Rocher, balls that you can get from Costco, for example. Everyone I ever make these for, they go crazy, and they look forward to this every holiday when it comes time for this time of year.
It's so simple. It's such a...
It is, and everyone's like, even though they know the ingredients to make it, they're like, no, we want you to make it. So I use my silicone molds. Got to chop up the hazelnuts, and I have my special food processor here because I do not want to do manual unless I have to. And then the other thing here is I have my double boiler, which is over here to the side. I've already got my water in it. And you want to make sure that when you put the pot in, always test the water level by lifting it up. If the water does a ripple ping inside, that means you've got the water too high and it's touching the bottom of your double boiler. Now, some cooks you can actually see where they'll put a pot of water, then they'll put a bowl on top and they'll just melt the chocolate that way. That works fine too. I just prefer this double boiler because then when I'm finished, I can put this in my handle and I can get out the last little bit. So let's get our water heated. And while our water is heating, we're going to chop our nuts. And the great thing too about using these silicone molds is I don't have to worry about buttering them or anything. I can just basically put the concoction of the chopped up hazelnuts with the milk chocolate together, just stirred, pour these into the molds, and you don't have to be, like perfectly in the molds, because I found people like those little extra pieces that stick out sometimes when I break them after they've hardened. But you'll end up making a couple of batches of these just because of the quantity and the volume of the product. So you'll want to put these on like a flat baking sheet or a very thin, tall, not a thin height like pan that you can slip into the freezer for it to harden quickly for you, which I love that too. Okay, yeah, so I have poured, make sure it's 16 ounces or 1 pound of the raw hazelnuts. You don't want anything salted or anything like that because it'll mess with the flavor, unless of course that's your preference. But if you're wanting it to really taste like the chocolates that are Ferrero Rocher, you want to get it raw. Then of course, I already said your pound plus of the milk chocolate. Now, for those of you that maybe don't have silicone molds, there are options, because my dad actually loves doing this all the time, which is he'll take this cookie sheet, it's not too tall, and he'll put some parchment paper down, and then he'll put this concoction on the parchment paper, and then he'll put it in the freezer for about 15 minutes. Then he'll bring it out and he'll just score it with like a knife, or you can use I like to use a pizza cutter in that particular instance, and you can get really nice ones, or you can just get, just your average one, and make your scoring and then put it back in the freezer, and then it'll just break really easy for you, and you have your wonderful chocolate stuff. My dad also likes to add, for those of you that has a little bit of a salty love, is he likes to sprinkle just a little bit of salt on the top when he does that. So if you have someone that really likes that salty flavor, feel free to put some on there, but just be aware of what type of salt you're using, because it can really mess with the flavor, or you could actually make it too salty. So just be a little bit cautious if you decide to do that method, or even to add the salt. So otherwise, I've yet to see someone who doesn't like these. Now, what I love to do is I like to, once I've made my concoctions, is I like to use these pretty boxes to put these in gifts for people. You can see it's this pretty gold box. I found these on Amazon, and it just folds up, and then you can put it together, and then you could basically put either write their name on it or put a little thing here and put a tag on it that has their name on it. And it's just a really nice gift. Now, what I like to do when I use these is two methods. One is if I'm giving it as a gift to someone that's outside the family, that's as a gift, I will actually use I use vacuum sealing on these treats if it's going outside my family, so I can make sure they don't have to worry about ants or any kind of potential contamination if they're getting it as a gift. So that way when they open it, I don't have to worry about a bug or an ant having crawled inside to get to the contents because it's well sealed. Now, when I'm giving as a gift in the family, because they're pretty much, as soon as I give it to them, they're eating it. And otherwise it's in the fridge, I don't have to worry about it. But that's just something I do. Okay, so that's just a few things, and I'll always I'll use this saran wrap. I found this fabulous saran wrap piece where I can literally pull it out and you know, cut it to the size I need. And this is BPA saran wrap, and then I just press it and it cuts it. So I really like using this to line this when it's for my family, so they can really just immediately dig in without having everybody trying to find enough, excuse me, a knife or scissors to open up the contents. So that's just some suggestions for you for the holiday as to what you might want to do option-wise when it comes to gifts. Now, what I do need to do, because I hear my water has heated up and I forgot to put my chocolate in. Is like get that chocolate in to our double boiler so it can actually start melting. Now, one thing you can do is, another reason why I love the Pound Plus is it's actually got grid marks on it, so I can actually break it as I open it. So it actually helps the chocolate melt faster because it's broken down into smaller pieces already just by me doing this. And you can hear it snapping because there's actually grid lines built into it. And then sometimes it doesn't like to crack as easy, but it's about inch big squares. Let me see. So that it helps with the melting. So here's, yeah, let me see if I can get one. Yeah, see, you can see there, that's the perfect grid line. So let's get this into our double boiler. Oh, sorry there, Mom. I didn't see you there. So let's get that in there. And it should melt pretty fast. But you can see here there's some that didn't quite melt. I mean, break easy. But it's melting quite quickly because I forgot to put the chocolate in there. So it's hot.
With the lid on it?
No, actually I don't, because I mean, the lid will help it. No, I'm glad you actually mentioned the lid, Mom, because and I do have a lid for it. I love my lid. It's a copper piece I got. But what I'll do, and you can see the chocolate's melting quite quickly now. But what I'm actually going to do is, after I fill the molds, the first round, because there's going to be at least 2 rounds of filling the molds and, you know, putting everything together, is I'm going to put the lid on it because it'll keep the chocolate melted without it hardening. And so after it's melted, I will, oh yeah, see, it's melting quite quickly now. I will actually put the lid on it, because I've noticed if I take the lid off after I've made it come to point that it needs to, and then I've done my initial chocolate first batch, if I don't put the lid on, I found that the chocolate changes in texture. It's not as pliable and it's more hardened, and it doesn't like it as much. So you can see here, it's really quickly melting. You can, you know, turn it around and move it and help facilitate the chocolate melting itself. Okay, so while this is finishing its last little bit of melting, and I've got a special tray here to make sure my spatula stays clean, is let's chop our nuts up. So again, it's 16 ounces, 1 pound of nuts. And it'll be a little bit loud initially, so just be aware of your volume. And we're pretty much done. Let's see. I see a couple chunks. There we go. I got rid of that last few chunks. Yeah, because there was just a few left. And you don't want chunks in it. I mean, it doesn't hurt, but I mean, when you want that nice blended texture and everything, it doesn't really work to have, you know. And you can see here, you know, it's not too big, it's not too small. Here's one nut. That'll be great for somebody. They'll get a little bit of a surprise, but in general, it's not too fine, but nor is it overly ground, I think. You just want enough that it have texture to it, but not too much. Okay, let's take a look at our chocolate. Oh, you can see it's coming together so beautifully now. Okay, let me grab my mitt so I have a little bit more control. Okay.
Okay,
You can see I have just a little bit more melting time, but you can see it melted quite quickly. But I've also got it on the double eye for quickly heating water. That makes a difference. Now, one thing you will want to do is after you've got the chocolate melted is turn off the eye, because the water underneath still keeps it moist, still keeps it melted and warm. And then when you put the lid on, it helps maintain that nice, perfect temperature. But you don't want it to keep cooking, because realize if you're doing double boiler, you don't want your water to boil away, because then you'll end up burning your pot. I did that one time. I forgot to put the water in because I got distracted. That's how come there's discoloration on this particular pot, is I kind of burnt my copper. It wasn't pretty, but I've been quite adamant ever since to make sure that I put my water in there, and I even double check it just to make sure. Fabulous things go on in the kitchen. Some of the best stuff are actually accidents that happen in the kitchen. You may say, like, what? Well, how do you think chocolate chip cookies came about, right? I remember my mom telling me this story years ago because I made a mistake in the kitchen. She's like, you know what? Some of the best mistakes happen in the kitchen, because that's how we got chocolate chip cookies, because they ran out of chocolate, but they had chocolate chips. And they says, well, if we put the chocolate chips in our cookies, then potentially it'll melt and we'll have chocolate cookies. Well, it did, you know, the chocolate made a chunk and therefore chocolate chip cookies. So I've got just one piece there. You can see that's being just a little bit stubborn. So once we get that one piece, thank you, then we will actually be in a good spot. So just get that one chunk melted. And then I can add the nuts, and you'll see that this will come off beautifully. Do I need to turn this off, Mom? Oven too?
I think it's up to temperature.
No, it already did that. That was the timer.
Okay.
So turn off.
I guess so.
Okay. And of course, when I do this kind of work, I always make sure that I start with good, clean hands and my hair pinned up and thoroughly checked. That's one thing we do in this house. We do what's called the body check. And it's checking for hairs to make sure when we're cooking for people that they don't get a surprise we don't want them to have, right? Huh, Mommy? Okay. That one piece is just being a little bit stubborn. It must have been part of a larger piece. Okay. Okay, now see here? Perfectly melted. Make sure. Okay. So I think we're in a good spot. So I'm going to add the nuts now. And we'll be good. So. Whoop. And feel free to do a little bit at a time on this, because it depends on how big your double boiler is, depends on how many nuts or how much you can do at a time. Because if it's not mixed well, you could have it potentially go outside the container, and then you'd have a mess because of timing and the size of your double boiler. I know that I can get by with this particular quantity because of the size of my double boiler here. Now see here, it's turned into a nice mess. And I know right now it does look a little bit on the messy side, but that's okay. I'm telling you, I've yet to find somebody that didn't love, I mean, absolutely love these things. And I know that the first year I made this, my brother actually started taking from the kids. His kids, he was like, here, I need to test that for you. But anyways, my brother started digging in on his kids' chocolates because they were so good. And I'd only actually made it for the girls that year because I didn't think he'd want it. I'm telling you what, after that, I made sure everybody had some. So I'm always making this. And you can see it'll start looking like it's a little bit too dry, but that's okay because we got our portions right. And I noticed you just got to take the time to really stir everything.
This is the quickest, easiest fudge in the world, isn't it?
Would you call it fudge? I don't know if I'd call it fudge.
Not fudge, but
chocolate, I guess. I don't know if it's quick. I don't know. It's still good. No matter how you look at it, it's good. And it's tasty. Okay, see here, it's kind of coming together now. It's pliable, but it's very nutty. And it's got a really good crunch. I'll have to give him, I always make some special for Dad too. So I've got to give Dad some. Because he loves these things. Okay, now let me bring this over here. So we're going to start filling these up. And I'm purposely going to make them overflow. Because when they harden, I'll crack it. And each one will have a little bit of a lip. And I found that my family and friends, that's the one thing they absolutely love. So what I found is if I just do a big dollop kind of in the center and then spread it from there and just kind of push it into the holes, that I don't have to be so perfect with this. And I actually found, because I made one year where I had some that were perfect and then I made some that weren't. And everyone actually, I found they were like, well, we like these better. So ever since then, I found don't feel like you have to be perfect with this. You just want to give enough so that they'll have the treat in the bottom and then they'll have that little extra on the top. And they loved it better, to be frank. Now, if you want to be perfect about it, I say go for it. But they loved this better. But every person's different, so, you know, whatever floats your boat. So let's do the next one. Okay. And again, I'll put the lid on this when I'm not actually directly taking the concoction into these, to just make sure that the chocolate stays nice and pliable with this. And everybody loves this. But if you've ever had those Ferrero Rochers, these things are just as addictive. But I'm not having to pay that extra high fee, frankly, for those special chocolates, you know? And I still get that wonderful flavor that I'm looking for from those specific chocolates that I love, which is basically milk chocolate and hazelnuts, which is what this is. So this is a really nice treat to have. So we got one more left. Okay. And again, just lumping it in the center and then spreading it out from there. And then I'll show you what it looks like after I put it in the freezer and bring it out. I'll show you what it looks like, and it's quite good.
now do you put your in the freezer as long as?
No, I actually just check it. I'd say maybe half an hour I give it, because you got to realize I made this hot. And yes, hot things tend to, shockingly, I know it's true, but hot tends to, you know, cool quicker. But with this, because you've already got the shape built into the structure, it's not a big deal as to how long you wait. Unless you're really like, I have to get this done. I'd say maybe wait half an hour, because this is kind of thin. And then check it. And then you can usually just take your finger and tap the top. And if it feels hard and it's not pliable, then you're good to bring it out. And it'll also change in color consistency. It won't be as glossy like this. It'll be more like you're looking at a chocolate bar. And that's another way to tell when it's done. Okay, I think we're good to now put this in the freezer. So let me wipe my spatula off here in the double boiler.
Do you have a space in the freezer?
I don't know, but I'll be finding one. Because then it's the holidays, where there's a will, there's a way. So let's see if we found a spot for it. If not, I know we will. Let's put that in the freezer now. Okay, so so see here, hard as a rock. That's what. So it's hard as a rock. This is when Dad's saying you add the salt, but that's not what we're doing. So see here, just break each of the rows. And you get those nice pieces. Oh, Dad wants that. You want to eat that, Dad? Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a piece of wrap here. Saran wrap. It's not literal saran wrap by Saran Wrap. It is Saran Wrap. Okay, and cut a few. And then what I'm going to do is flip this over and pop these out. Okay. You want one, Dad? Because you have the look. You want a video, Dad? Who's going to take a bite? No? Okay, so then what we're going to do, because I've already cut it, is we're just going to wrap this up a little bit. Just enough to kind of get it in my box here. And then I'm going to put it down in my box. And then I'm going to bring this together. And I'm going to slide it into the pocket here. I'm going to have to push it down just a little bit. Let's fix this side. And let me just slide it in there. And then, there you go. And there you have a gift.
That's beautiful.
That you can give to somebody for the holidays or any kind of special treat. And then if you want to, you can put either a string through here and do a little piece of paper with their name on it, or you can use a label maker and put their name on it. That way they know it's for them. That's it. Okay. There we go.
That's so good.
Are you sure you don't want a bigger piece?
That's so good. More, please.
Dad, you wanted to salt yours?
Yes. This is this adds so much flavor. I just go right along. That's it.
Yeah, and this is still when
Just
it's
a little
pliable.
bit of just a little bit of salt. But what happens when it freezes right in there and gives that whole thing flavor. And God, it's good.
Now you used, I saw it looked like pink Himalayan.
I'm using
Salt.
the pink Himalayan sea salt.
Do you prefer that over the Celtic in your chocolate, or just because
You know
of the
what?
size?
I tried the Celtic on this.
chocolate?
It wasn't good.
Really?
I didn't like it. But this right here, the pink
pink?
Himalayan sea salt is phenomenal on it.
Okay, but you make sure that you're doing it when it's wet, because then
Yes.
it really grabs and dries in there.
That's right.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm going to put the rest of these in the freezer.
All right.
And Dad's is the green one, because we know that one has the salt next to your eyes. And then we'll harden this, and then we'll do like the other ones and package it. And you can see here, I've already got 3 ready to go for our guests. Okay, so I just finished making my last box here. And what I'm doing is I used my trusty Dymo label maker, and that you hook up to your computer. And I made this label here, because anything that I give to somebody that I've made, in case they have allergies or allergic reactions that maybe I'm not aware of, that's food related, I like them to know exactly what is in the item I'm giving them. So what I usually do is I call it Crystal's Alchemical Kitchen, because years ago Mom gave me a what's it called, Circa binder, that she called it Crystal's Alchemical Kitchen. So I've kind of run with that as the title of when I give somebody things. And then I usually give it a little fancy name, and this I'm calling my Chocolate Delight. And then I list the word ingredients, and then I put what it contains. So in this instance, it's the raw hazelnuts and milk chocolate. So that way, if a person's allergic to milk chocolate or chocolate, they know it. And again, hazelnuts, because I knew someone years ago that was actually allergic to chocolate. So I like to always make sure that they know exactly what they're doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel this off, and then you can see that there's two sides of the box. There's the side that I push the lip down, and then there's the side that you don't push the lip down. So I'm going to put it on the side I don't push the lip down. So I'm going to try and do my best to center this and just place the tag on there. Then the person that it's for, I made a second Dymo label that I used, that you basically, this is the one for that's for shipping addresses, and this is the one that you actually use for file folders. And that way it's very much obvious who it's for, what it contains, and then that way they know exactly, and it looks presentable. It looks very professional, and that's something that I'm very adamant when I'm giving someone a gift that I've made in my home, is I like it to look presentable and almost as if it's from, you know, a high-end store and everything. So this way, I have the gift now ready for putting in front of their stocking.